If you followed my channel for a while, you're probably aware of the fact that, sure, I've talked about GameStop potentially closing before, but it's always been from a concerned perspective. Unlike the majority of the people on this platform, I'm not one to kind of rain on GameStop's parade, and I don't do it because I'm someone that owns the stock or anything like that. I just support GameStop because I like the idea of being able to walk into a physical brick and mortar store and pick up a game, and I like to actually physically own my games on a disc rather than having a digital copy that ultimately I can't resell or anything like that. However, while I go into GameStop at least once a month because I'm part of their Power Up Rewards program, they give me a $5 certificate once a month, and oftentimes I spend it on a game that's only $5 or $10 and either get it for free or maybe I pay $5 for a game. Whatever, I use that certificate every month. It's became increasingly harder to actually do so due to the lack of inventory that my store has. And being someone from Minnesota, I get around, I travel during the summer throughout the state, and I do stop at many other GameStops, mostly because of the inventory. I like to see other GameStops, see what kind of inventory they have, because ultimately, as a store selling used products, every location has different inventory. So I've been to a lot of GameStops in Minnesota so far this summer, and I've noticed that the inventory is abysmal. I mean, even in the Twin Cities, many of the stores don't have great inventory. And obviously, they got away from selling the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 at many of the locations, though there are still some of the bigger locations that have those games. It just seems like even on the Xbox One, there's just a lack of inventory for GameStop. And I attribute this to a few things. First of all, they quit taking trade-ins altogether for a period of time in 2020. And it seems like they haven't caught back up yet. As well as the fact that the promotions to trade things in just have not been as lucrative as maybe previously. As a Power Up Rewards member, I get 10% bonus, but they used to more frequently run these promotions where maybe they'd give you a whole extra $5 per game. And when many of the games are trading in for $5-6, an extra $5 is a substantial amount of money to add to each game you're trading in. But the biggest thing that I think is affecting GameStop's inventory, and that we'll see even be worse with the next generation of game consoles, is just simply the fact that people aren't buying the physical discs like they used to. It seems like the majority of these games, the ones that were released in 2021, don't even necessarily have used copies for sale at GameStop. And I attribute that to the fact that the people who bought the physical copies are probably holding on to them, and not many people bought the physical copy and then resold it because so many people bought the games digitally, or they got it through Game Pass or something like that, where they completely cut GameStop out of the mix altogether. I take a game like MLB The Show 21. I've wanted to play that because, as someone coming from Xbox, I was only able to play up until I have 15 on the PlayStation 3. Could have got 16, but it's outrageously expensive for that old of a baseball game. So I hadn't been able to play an MLB The Show game in a while, and I thought, well, I'll pick it up used at GameStop. And for months and months, and maybe even still today, you can't even actually get a used copy of MLB The Show at GameStop. And I assume it's because the majority of people got the show through Game Pass, or they bought it digitally, and it just wasn't something that people were buying a physical copy of and then turning around to trade into GameStop like the company would probably have liked. And it's not just the new games. Some of the older games, say like a 2015 Xbox One game, you have a hard time finding those as well. And I attribute that in part to GameStop's very aggressive promotions around selling games that were, I would say, $20 or less. They were doing all these different kind of promotions where they'd be like, buy 3 or 4 games that are $15 each, and you'll be able to purchase them for this, square price, $25 or something. You were getting like $45 worth of games for $25. So they were encouraging you to buy bulk. And ultimately, that kind of took a lot of these lower end titles that were maybe $20 or less used. It took them completely off of GameStop's shelves because those aren't the titles that people are trading in frequently either, because of course they trade in for next to nothing. So GameStop cleared them all off in these promotions where they encourage you to buy bulk, and then they weren't able to actually replace those titles on the shelves because many people aren't going to bother to trade in a game that's worth $2 or $3. And that's the case for a lot of the games GameStop sells. And the reason why many people don't want to do that is because it's became more commonplace, I feel like, to sell your games on eBay. Sell them on Amazon, maybe even a little bit harder to get into than on eBay, or just sell them on Facebook Marketplace. I've sold bundles of games on Facebook Marketplace before. I've taken like 10 low-end Xbox One games that maybe I picked up for $5 or $10 a piece at GameStop, put them all together, all 10 of them, $30, sold on Facebook Marketplace. I do stuff like that. I know a lot of people do, and for that reason, seems like people don't want to trade stuff into GameStop for that cliched low price that they're offering, just because it's convenient, because there's other convenient ways to go about doing it. And I think that going forward into the next console generation, as things become increasingly more digital, and that's something we've been saying for 10 years, it's going to end up affecting GameStop's bottom line and GameStop's ability to actually put products on their shelves. What are they going to do? Are they going to sell collectibles? I know obviously TCG games, very popular right now. A lot of people want to get their hands on those cards, but not every GameStop even necessarily is stocking those either. So what it comes down to is you have these physical stores that almost seem unnecessary. And I say that because on GameStop.com, a lot of the games I want are in stock. I can get them shipped to me free if I spend $35 or more, and maybe I put together an order and I do that. But it makes going to the actual GameStop store feel so outdated, so meaningless, and just overall an experience that's bound for a letdown if you don't check the inventory beforehand on your computer or phone, because many of the titles you want probably aren't even for sale at GameStop. I mean, take something like Marvel Avengers. There's like 4 GameStops in Minnesota that have copies of Marvel Avengers, a terrible game from well over a year ago that, was a flop at release, likely sold a decent amount of copies, I would imagine, where it should be getting traded in, because it's not a good game and it's one that people are going to want to get rid of. But no, people aren't even trading that in, or at least the ones that have been traded in have been sold and they weren't replaced. So the GameStop circle of life that people so heavily criticize them for ultimately is what's now led to them having very little inventory, at least here in Minnesota, on their shelves, and in a way making the store feel entirely purposeless to me. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. As you think about some of these later titles to come out in the Xbox One, PlayStation 4's lifespan even, they've got to be having smaller print counts on these discs than what you would have had, say, back in 2014, for instance, on a game for the same console. And I see this on some of the video game collecting channels, per se, that I watch. Guys like Phoenix Resale that go into a lot of video game stores, pawn shops, things like that. And all of them, their inventory is very limited. And he doesn't necessarily shop at GameStop very much, he uses GameStop.com more. But, like the game exchanges, stores like that he's going into, many of them are just ground down on inventory, and they're just not getting maybe the trade-ins they would have used to have gotten, because people have moved more to digital. And these game services, not to mention some of these consoles, aren't even capable of playing discs anyways. Maybe I'm just old school. I like walking into a physical store, picking up a physical game, but it seems like the industry is only continuing to go away from that at an increasingly rapid rate. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Bailey, and I will see you in the next video.